There seems to be a lot of larger families on social media. Is this a thing? Is this a new trend? Or are people in it for the money?
I want to have 10 children.
Hey, you guys, thank you for joining us again. Did you know that there are real medical risks associated with a high parity, that's a high number of births? These risks include increased risk for postpartum hemorrhage, for cesarean deliveries, and malpresentation. Now, this episode, we're going to focus on other aspects of a large family. Hey, everyone, it's good to have you guys back. So here's the thing. Have you noticed that there seems to be a lot of larger families on social media? Is this a thing? Is this a new trend? Or are larger families just more visible to us because of social media? Or are people in it for the money? All right, Dr. Trissa, it's good to have you back on the couch, on the virtual couch. Once again, thank you for hopping on. How have you been?
Motherhood, life, work.
Motherhood life. Well, we are going to talk about that motherhood. And I don't know if you've noticed. I mean, I am certainly, as you guys know, the hand behind the handle. And because of that, I get exposed to a lot of family content and a lot of pregnancy content because the account is intentionally following families and following that type of content. So I've been wondering, I mean, have you guys noticed the same thing? Are you seeing a lot more larger families on your social media feed? Do you see the women that are having the 5 and the 6 and the 7 or more kids? And what are your thoughts about that? I mean, back in the day, we used to have larger families and then we kind of downsized. So is this a trend? Is this a money grab? Or do women generally want to have larger families? What do you guys think? What have your experience been like, Dr. Trissa?
Well, I'm going to first speak on my personal experience. And any of my friends who knew me within the past 10 years would have heard me say the lovely ridiculousnesses of, I want to have 10 children.
Do you? How come I have not heard this conversation? Really? Oh my God. I had no, okay. Out of all the things we've talked about a lot of things over the years. I had no idea you were one of those women. Okay, help us understand.
I was definitely one of the women who thought I wanted to have lots of children. I wanted to have a big family. I wanted to be able to share love and spread love with lots of children and have kids in the house and growing up. Yes, I had the idea. Now, of course, people would laugh and make fun of me and tell me 10 is kind of crazy. Granted.
But why did you want 10? Why 10 kids? Like, why such a big family?
For me, it just represents like joy and happiness. Like, which is kind of, weird. I have one and only one, and I feel for him because, well, for one, I grew up with siblings, and I feel like there's no better thing than to grow up with siblings, growing up with lots of close related siblings. For me, my thoughts on that was ideal, right? It was very idyllic. This is what I decided I wanted to do. And I was just like, 10 is a great number. 5 boys, 5 girls. Let's go. It would have been awesome.
I get the idea about a large family. I grew up primarily as an only child, but I definitely have had the benefits of having cousins. And as you guys know, I do have siblings. So it's definitely a different experience. I've had both kind of experiences, more so as an only child than as someone growing up with siblings. But I definitely can see in my adulthood really the joy of having siblings and having those individual relationships. So I agree with you.
But the way that my body has responded to my one pregnancy, decided that we might cap that number a little bit lower.
Your body had plans.
Yet, I'm still moving along, and there hasn't been another, so we don't know. Let's see. In terms of looking around and noting women having lots of children, my experience of it, my I don't want to say understanding, but what I've seen most popular has honestly been in religious settings. right? I've seen a lot more people who would be of a religious background and a pretty conservative, maybe strict religious background, having multiple children, having many children, taking the edict of be fruitful and multiplying. But I feel like, yes, there had been this trend to not have as many. And so you started not seeing as many children, even in these kind of religious settings. And it was still a little bit shocking when I did. So I'm thinking back to there's a young couple that I know, and I think that they're younger than I am. And I knew them from the church that I had gone to at one point in time. I think the wife went there, not the husband. And I believe they may be on child number 4 or 5. Um, and they're young and black. And I was actually kind of shocked, thinking, oh yeah, we're on kid number 5. And then I think maybe 6 is on the way. I'm not even so sure anymore. So it to me, it still strikes as something that's kind of um unusual or not the norm. But with a lot of the ones, and I don't think I follow enough of them, with a lot of the ones that you're seeing in social media, I don't know if there is still that religious trend to who they are. Yes, we know about the large white family and then the ones who ended up in jail. We're not going to call nobody's names, but I don't know if the majority of who are being presented on social media, if they have a little bit of that bend still to it. Because then you can have even that part playing, like representing Christ in what they do, or like, yes, there's all of this to gain, but it's because we're trying to point you people to, like, there could be many aspects to it. But I can't say that I know, okay, yeah, well, there are people who are definitely, to me, that looks like, oh, they're definitely trying to jump on this influencer trend. And so these are, they're just knocking them out because they know the more they have is the more they stand out, type of thing. So I'm not sure.
It's definitely, and to your point, that influencer trend is very serious, because these large families, or these families in general, there are some families that are very much influencers that are not necessarily large, and there are certainly some large families, and their followers can be anywhere from tens of thousands to the millions. Like, a lot of them have these multi-million follower accounts, and that translates into coins, some serious money, because then they're able to represent different brands. So it can become quite lucrative. And as you said, the more you have, the more you stand out on social media, because now you're distancing yourself from the what's typical, what's average, and now you're becoming the above average, the outstanding family. I have seen, for the ones that our accounts follow, they do tend to be religious family, but not necessarily have made the branding that they're doing this for religious purposes. Their branding have almost unanimously have not been religious related, though they tend to be religious families, and they use religion in talking about, I've seen anywhere from talking about our relationship was broken up before, now we're back together, and now we are having this large family, or we've been sweethearts since we were kids, and we've always wanted a larger family. I've seen that trend. I've seen we met on social media, and now we're going to continue our social media influencership by showing you guys, our relationship on all different phases and all different evolutions. And also, I've noticed, some of these women are having kids pretty quickly. So they still have a toddler, and now they're pregnant again. And so, in a way, to me, especially when you talk about Black women and the issues with maternal health, seeing a Black woman have a larger family is almost, to me, resistance in a weird way, because we have been marginalized even in our fertility, just from our economics to our to our maternal health stats, from just all these different levels, our ability to freely have large families have been so restrictive. Mm-hmm. And to women losing their kids, are fearful of losing their kids because of all the violence that Black women have endured, with the loss of their kids, especially their sons, due to cop violence or just violence in general. And so there have been lots of factors that I think have affected Black women's decision in having larger families. So in a way, it does seem kind of resistance for to see a Black woman have a larger family. And then also to monetize having a larger family. You almost want to be like, okay, sis, I see you.
Right.
You handle it, right? And safely have it. In a lot of these larger families, you also see the home births. And so they really show the whole journey, so to speak. What's interesting, it does bring up another unique topic. They're out there having larger families so that they can be even more of an influencer, or are they wanting larger families and deciding, then I'm going to capitalize on the fact that we are larger and we have to pay some bills, and we're going to monetize the fact that we're a larger family? I don't know which one came first. Egg. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? But nonetheless, it does bring up some interesting concerns about kids, because they're actually technically working, right? So how does labor laws affect kids who are having some type of influence or effect on social media, branding on social media? The law is kind of behind social media. So it just brings up, like, should we be concerned about child labor laws? Should child labor laws apply to social media?
So that one's gonna go out to all the lawyers that are looking on. Feel free to chime in on that.
As a mom, how do you feel about, is it work, or are they just having fun and we just happen to be running the camera and capturing life and happen to monetize on that?
I'm gonna back it up a little bit even before that. There is a debate that's going on about the things that we share about our children on social media, and whether or not we should be doing that as autonomous creatures if they have not given us permission.
Okay, can you expound on that? Because I think you just touched on another topic.
Yes.
So I've seen the potty training.
See, I that's one of the things that I guess in some ways I would say that I wrestle with. I don't share a whole lot, but I do share images and pictures of my son. And some people may think I'm just trying to be private and hide. Honestly, I'm a little lazy. I don't have time to put the pictures up. I don't have time to make fancy posts in general. Honestly,
you're not even lazy. You're busy.
Well, there's that too. I just want to hang out with him. I want to spend the time with him. Sometimes he'll frustrate me, and but I just want to spend the time with him. And he's not going to be this small for long. So
you don't want to see him virtually. You want to spend the time in person.
I want that interaction. So there is that portion of it that I still think back to. Some people have no issues with putting up embarrassing things about their kids, trying to embarrass them. That's not something I ever want to do. I don't think that's wise. I don't think that's kind. But I do sometimes think about the fact, would he want these things on there? Have I gotten his permission to put them up? He is his own person. And in some ways, I should make sure that he's okay with me sharing these things with the world. It's a little different if I send his picture to auntie, if I send his picture to grandpa, whatever. That's a little different. That's an intimate conversation, intimate communication. But when you put it out there and you know that it's going to be out there for a lifetime, it's going to be out there for anybody and everybody to see. Like, is there a level or a point in time where we should be getting this kid's approval for putting his image out there? I think about some of the other famous families that have been having shows and been in the public eye, and having one member of the family that doesn't want to be on the show. Right? Like, it'll be about this musical family or this whatever, and it'll be all the kids but this one, because this one's like, nope, I don't want to be involved. Right? Do we have that ability? Do the kids have the ability to do that when they are being social media influencers? They may think it's fun and nice when they're younger, but what about when they hit the teenagers and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore? What's the issue? What's going to be the thing there? So it's part of, do we have their permission to even put their image, their life, their recordings on it? And then beyond that, yes, if we are now having them do this, because it's one thing if we are just casually taking video and trimming it down to what we need.
Right.
There could be some of that, but there could be some that maybe desire to be more scripted, desire to be more, oh, can you do that again? And you have them repeat. Like, that's when it becomes work. If you have a camera just kind of on, cameras at different angles in the house and they're just taping things as you go about your day, that's different. But we know that that's not what they're doing based on the angles that you get. You'd have to, the camera in their face and they're asking them questions. It's a different type of thing.
Yeah, so if you're zooming in and out automatically, I know you're intentionally doing it, right? Like there's certain facts that we can tell that there's some level of intentionality behind it.
Right. And so in this case, yeah, you're putting them to work. They're the actors in your play. So you should be doing some work on setting them up. Yes, take care of the family, but there has to be a measure of setting them up. And there are laws in place for the actors, for the child actors, in terms of how much, and of course, these are things that had to be done in more recent years. Stave off the abuse people like Drew Barrymore and them would have had when they were kids, right? Having only a certain amount of hours of filming and different things like that. Like,
protected time for study, school time, and things like that. Yeah.
These things that are going to have to be put in place if you're going to be, if this is going to be like a consistent way of life, not a, okay, we're doing this for this period and then we're done, then yes, there are going to need to be some laws in place. There's going to need to be some standards in place to do what's best for the kids.
Right.
Because yes, the family has to eat, the family has to have money, but we also have to make sure we nurture and develop these kids that are here.
Right. What is a reasonable skill set in life for a kid to have? Every kid should have the ability to have that playtime, downtime. Even though we are having some issues with child labor in some of the states, but that's a whole other conversation. But in some of these companies, okay. But it just really emphasizes even more the point that we need to protect kids and we need to protect kids working, and social media needs to fall in that bracket. I mean, it's really no different than some of these unscripted shows on television, really. It's just that you are in control of the camera and you are in control of the editing and what you ultimately produce on these social platforms. But it really is no different from a lot of the unscripted shows that people watch currently. Just those unscripted shows just have, a whole team that works on the editing and the production and all, and you get your funding, but you're doing the same thing. You're just using a platform. So I guess that's why we're going to start to see a trend towards some more protection. And I do think I would definitely say if I grew up and my mom or my dad had shared any content of me walking around in a diaper, as cute as I was with my little afro, I would have been mortified as a 20-year-old, mortified as a teenager, and probably would have been a hermit living somewhere just out of sheer embarrassment. Like, could you imagine that? Finding out that your parents posted your potty training, posted your diaper training, posted something, embarrassing that you said because it was cute to them. And there are a lot of things that are cute to parents that are absolutely mortifying to the child. And that child then has to apply for a job, maybe wants to be a CEO one day of a major 500 Fortune company, but has this video that lives forever, that is canonized on the internet. And so anybody in their realm, when they're trying to have a serious, and Lord knows as a Black woman, that's certainly the life that we live. even the head of a major CEO was sharing on social media recently. Her video was trending that even though she is the head of a Fortune 500 company, when she walked into a meeting, that she was still being questioned. Oh, how come you're here? Like, are you here as the administrative staff to support? Like, even though they knew that the only people in the room were the CEOs of 500 companies, she was still being questioned. So could you then add to that scenario there being some type of picture of her as a kid with running around with diapers with no top on, changed by her parent? Like, that even further compromises her integrity as a leader, and it shouldn't, but that's how our society is. So, especially if your child wants to really have certain roles in life, I do think it's compromising. And I do think we definitely need to rethink the exposure of kids on social media and what type of content is reasonable content to share without some type of protection or guardianship or some type of legal representation that protects the interests of the child when it comes to these particular types of things. And perhaps I'm creating a new area of law that you guys need to look into. But a law that if a parent wants to have a child and use a child for content on social media, that they automatically have to hire some type of not really arbitrator, some type of legal representation that will protect the interests of a child by certain standards, so that there is no bias and there's no gray zone. That is very clear that kids need not to be exposed to this until they are of a certain age to give their permission. And I guess this is what's really behind the new law that's coming out next year in Illinois, where they're also honing in on the financial aspect of it, right? Because parents are reaping the benefit and the finances of their adorable kids, getting all the coins, getting all the followers, and getting brand deals. And unfortunately, not every parent is a good parent. So there are parents out there that are getting the money and not really putting, like, we're not seeing what's that 529. We're not seeing 529 accounts. We're not seeing people saving up for the kids.
Roth IRAs.
Roth RIs. They're not saving up for their education. They're not, giving the kids some type of expenditure. Like, you wanted that beautiful toy, well, you know what, you got us an extra 1,000 followers. Maybe you do deserve that special toy that otherwise would have been out of my budget. So, it's good that we're starting to see laws about the financial aspect, but I do agree, Dr. Trista, that we need to have laws that help us with morality in this country. With boundaries. We don't seem to understand healthy boundaries in this country. We certainly have almost completely obliterated what are healthy boundaries when it comes to social media. So especially for kids, I think kids need to be considered a protected class. Kids, the elderly.
Yes.
Because people do the same thing for the elderly.
Yes. There has to be protection for them. And, we all know the legal age of consent, or whatever they want to call it, but there has to be a bit more diving into that aspect of it, and looking at, and, trying to figure out what would be an appropriate age, so to speak, right? So looking at the psychology of things and looking at the legal aspect of things, and then, making sure, like you said, that we are now looking at ways to protect children, because they do need our protection. Yes, they don't need our coddling, but they need our protection. And we always want to tell them, you want to be careful about what you put out there on social media. Well, were you thinking the same thing when you posted this video of your kid, in whatever it was? Like, were you thinking the same thing that you're now expounding on this kid to be careful of when they go and post on it? Needless to say, some of the other darker things that come about with what gets posted online.
Right.
Even if we keep it above board, not going into that deep, dark world, like, we still need to be mindful how we expose our children out there.
Absolutely. And I guess
small or big family.
Right. And I would say also, using what's your comfort zone is not the same, because I could definitely tell you my comfort zone and my dad's comfort zone and my mom's comfort zone are totally different. Okay. I'm probably a little bit more out there than I'm in a certain generation. So I'm a little bit more open when it comes to social media. I'm really only open because of this platform, to be honest. But I'm gonna tell you, like, my dad would have it on lock and like I don't even post his face. Okay. Like he wants absolutely nothing to do with social media. My mom is kind of in between. She'll allow me to post her face, but she ain't got no time for social media. So you can't really use what's your own comfort zone, because again, we have introverts who don't want to be any, like you said, that family member that doesn't want to be on social media is probably that introvert. We have extroverts and ambiverts, and so we all have different comfort zone when it comes to what type of content and how much exposure and privacy we want when it comes to these platforms. So you can't use your own personal bias. I love a psychologist, a child psychologist being involved. Like, let's be responsible. Yes, larger families are growing, not that much. The stats are pretty much the same from 2018 was like 1.3%, and then now last year, or 2021, we're down to 1.2%, and we've kind of been in the 1.2s in the last few years. So it hasn't really changed that much. I do think we're going to see eventual change in those numbers, because it's probably going to be a slow growth, but I do think we're going to see a growth in larger families. We probably won't see the effect of those percentages until years from now, unless there's some other major social shift. But that being said, if we're going to trend with family influencers, which includes the kids, then we need to have more responsible guidelines. Let us know how you feel about it. Hit us up below. Is your family on social media? Would you put your family on social media? And what are the boundaries you think we need to have in terms of exposing kids on social medias? Or do you think that we should even have kids on social media until they are at a responsible age where they can make that decision for themselves? We want to know, what do you think? Hit us up below. Once again, we thank you guys for watching us. I am Dr. T, the hand behind the handle of Healthy Bump Club here on YouTube, and healthybump.club on Instagram. And Dr. Trista, where can they find you and all of your motherhood tips?
In my house. I'm kidding.
And she is right about that. Like, you are not even kidding. That's the funny part about it. Like, you're being 100% serious.
I'm on Instagram at tristajob.dpt.
Awesome. And once again, we thank you guys for supporting us financially, whether you're doing so through our gear, through our direct donations, or hitting up the link for Apple below because you are a music level. We appreciate however you choose to support us. And once again, we thank you always for commenting, liking, and sharing this content. Get us in the front, you guys. We appreciate you, and we'll see you guys when? Next episode. And